Salut! Welcome to the part 2 video of my TEF Canada journey series. I'm Akshara and I recently cleared my TEF Canada exam and I obtained the French proficiency score for my PR application to Canada. In the first part, I spoke about how it all started and my experience in picking up the language up until B2. So if you haven't watched that video, I would suggest you to first watch that video and then come back to this one for you to get the entire idea. And if you're new here, do subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell to get alerts every single time I post a new video. I will be talking everything about my TEF Canada journey on this channel. So if you have any questions, you can leave a comment below. Alright, let's dive right into the video now. After doing my grammar up until B2, I now thought I was ready to start looking at what TEF is and how much score I should aim for. I had an idea that I need to get a particular score, which is the NCLC 7, to obtain French proficiency points. And I knew it was very similar to the IELTS exam, which evaluates your English language skill. Similarly, TEF evaluates four domains of our French language ability: the listening, known as the compréhension orale; reading, which is the compréhension écrite; writing, which is the expressio écrite; and the speaking skill, which is the expressio orale. This was the only basic understanding I had up until this point. So I started looking out for videos on YouTube to understand the pattern and structure of questions in this section. The first important step is to understand what the pattern is all about. So you know the number of questions and you know the kind of time that is given in each section. A lot of people do not have the exact idea and sometimes even go into the exam hall and they're sort of taken aback and confused. Please don't do this mistake. Completely understand the pattern first. Now there's an added layer of confusion among people as the pattern was changed on December 11, 2023. So please check the structure appropriately and see if you're referring to the new pattern of the exam only. You can find my video in which I will simplify and explain the new TEF Canada pattern. I will be posting it shortly. Well, in June 2023, I started reaching out to people on platforms like Facebook and Telegram to understand how do I go about further. I honestly spoke to a ton of people who were currently preparing or had already cleared the exam. It gave me such a clear understanding of what the reality is like, booking different centers and getting slots. I strongly suggest you to talk to people to, understand what the real deal is, how it is like to appear for exams, and basically everything in between. You can also book a one on one session with me if you'd like for me to help you out in customizing a learning schedule according to your situation, or even just practice with you. You can find the link below in the description. You can book a session with me and we can get connected over a call. Coming back, the very first thing I did, which is typically suggested by everyone, is that I bought the Prep My Future subscription. This is an excellent tool to get familiar with the structure and the different categories of questions that come in the exam. It is robust and very much in line with the actual examination. They have even updated the structure according to the changes after 11 December. So, yeah, I went through it 100%. It was of great help, and at the same time, I realized okay, I am so very far away from prepping for the actual examination because, like I said, at that point, I had only concentrated on grammar. All this was very new and pretty overwhelming. I would try to read some small articles and I would lose patience because it was very hard to follow. The same thing was with listening, to follow someone while they're speaking, or even in a video, it is supremely hard while learning a new language. There are some studies that show that during learning a language, listening is typically the hardest part. So yeah, the initial inertia really wore me off. I'm saying this only because this is extremely normal and it happens to everyone. So don't get disappointed or overwhelmed. It's all part of the process. I decided to keep going. I started joining different groups on Facebook. There I could find materials like 102 text for comprehensive écrit. I kept avoiding the expressive écrit section like a real flu. The reason was that I made the most mistake in writing always, and that's why I never felt motivated to take it up and work further. I really like speaking as it pushed me over the edge, but just enough to, keep me interested in it as well. So I started finding some non conventional ways to speak to people without having to spend any money. Yes, there are typical platforms like italki and lingopie where you can sign up and talk to people. They are typically more advanced and they're certified. But this was still initial discovery phase for me, where I was just experimenting with what works and what doesn't work for me, what are my weaknesses, and where I should concentrate more. For example, I joined these meetup groups where people gathered there just to practice different languages, out of which I, chose French. It's totally informal and free. There are general language learners from around the world, and they're all of different levels. At this point, even though I had done B2, in reality, different sections, I was at different levels. Like, for example, if we take the expressio oral section, I was maybe at B1 tops. It was a real push for me, as I was literally put in a room where I had to try my best and converse in French. But the best part was they were all learners as well. So they also did mistakes and there was more room for improvement as well. Conversations were more generic, like, qu'est-ce que tu fais, quelle est votre profession, oui, comme ça. It was excellent as I received real time feedback. I started repeating the same set of questions to ask to people, and my answers were also starting to get a little rehearsed. It did make me comfortable and gave me the confidence. Also, I think the real thrill was that I was basically able to understand what other people were talking about. They were all also practicing, so they were little slow in conversation as well. So this was pretty gratifying for me and it gave me a boost for a while. Then I eventually got eased into it and I didn't feel that I was gaining much after a point. Also, we must understand that learning a language versus giving your TEF Canada exam is very different. If I have to learn the language, I could keep going on, but it is very necessary that I do TEF specific preparation for getting the score that I require. Yeah, so I felt like I had gotten enough from these sessions. I used to attend these meetups at like 3:30 a.m. IST because they were all typically held in the North American time zones. Anyways, I will link one such session in the link below and you can check it out if it works for you. Here, I started training for a month for TEF specific preparation. I started in June 2023 and I gave my first exam in July 2023. Now, I became more proactive and I started seeing what works out for me. I would download vocabulary books and every single day I would take notes of new words that I learned, be it while reading articles or while hearing any audio as well. I truly believe that repetition is the key, especially while learning a new language. Repeat vocabulary as many times as you can think of because that's the only way that it will seep into your subconscious and eventually it will become a part of your daily vocabulary and it will start coming naturally to you. I focused a lot on learning new vocabulary and it worked magically for me. It was very powerful as now I could recognize these words while reading articles, and it started making me feel more confident that I felt like I was getting somewhere. Oh, also, DeepL and Google translators had become my best friends during this time. I would put every single word on the translator and use the hear option to learn how it is pronounced. The important thing here is the way words look and are pronounced in French are extremely different. So it's super important to know how it sounds like, which will aid you a lot during your comprehensive oral section. Sometimes you might know what that word is, but since you don't know what the pronunciation is like, you might not even be able to figure out. So that helps. And also for speaking, with knowing how a particular word is pronounced in a particular language, you become a lot more confident when you are talking as well, and also your accent improves. So I attempted my first TEF exam in the month of July, and then about 4 times after that. Each time I had one crazy story. Sometimes I just couldn't gather as to what was happening. But my biggest learning here was just to believe in the process and keep going at it. There were innumerable external factors that played a role as well. We usually don't take that into account, which is why I said don't keep a very stern timeline that you will finish by this time. And when that doesn't happen for whatever reason, it eventually leads to frustration. I said to myself that I would finish it in 8 months, and eventually I understood that it was not possible. It wasn't even about my language capability. There was just so many other things like getting a slot, getting a center, or even just getting results after every attempt. And there's another thing here, which is you need to give 30 days gap between each exam. So there's a lot of things that we'll have to take into account, and a lot of times things are not in our control, so that can get a little disappointing. But nevertheless, it took me a whole 13-month long endurance to get through this. So, yeah, this was my journey, more like a brief outline, you could say. I will be making more videos on how to prepare for each section, and I will talk more about the resources that I used. So, if you like this video, do make sure to let me know in the comments below. And if you want to expedite your journey, you can book a session with me soon. I'll see you in the next one. Abhiyanto.